Welcome to DMV Spotlight on ESPN 630, the sports capital, where we shine a light on local stories from the District, Maryland, and Virginia to inform, enlighten, and inspire you. I'm Barbara Britt, and my guest today has quite a story to tell. Matt Gerson was diagnosed with cancer when he was 10 years old. He's grown up now, and he has used that experience to help other children who are battling cancer. And he's the founder of Tracy's Kids, and he helps kids in a very unique way, and I want him to tell his story. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Glad to be here. Thank you for recognizing us.
On DMV Spotlight. And so let's start at the beginning. You are the founder of Tracy's Kids.
I am.
And obviously your name is Matt Gerson, so you are not Tracy.
Right.
But let's start at the beginning. Let's start when you're 10 years old.
Okay.
What happened?
So I'm 10 years old. I was diagnosed the day Martin Luther King was assassinated. So there's a point in time that I remember very, very well. And back in the day, families didn't use the word cancer. They didn't talk about cancer.
It was scary.
They certainly didn't talk about how you were feeling about being sick. I didn't even know that I had something called cancer. I obviously knew I was sick. And I went through 2.5 years of treatment without anything to help address the psychological toll that the disease and its treatment imposed on me. And over time, I've learned not only imposed on me, but on my family, on my sister, on everyone. So that was my story back then. And
let me ask you, are you healthy?
I am healthy. It is 50-some years later.
Hallelujah. That's great news. And do you know what kind of cancer you have?
Oh, sure. It's something you never heard of called a rhabdomyosarcoma. And it's a very rare, but it is a very tough, solid tumor. My parents were told that I had 8 months to live and all that stuff. So it was a very difficult time, and also a different time in the treatment process. Believe it or not, they still use the same medication on this tumor, but they just deliver it differently and in different doses. And there's been incredible progress in medical technologies, medical research, medical science. And I didn't want to focus on the science and research part because A, I didn't understand it, and B, you need too much money. But on my 40th birthday, I decided that I wanted to do something. I'd always been interested in the psychological side of this because I knew that there was emotional and psychological baggage that went along with the disease, what's known as the late effects, the after effects, collateral damage that goes along with the treatments that I had and that everyone has. So I visited Georgetown Hospital one day, and that's where I met Tracy. And Tracy has been a colleague and a partner, for the 22 years since that we've been working together. My part of the job is to raise money for the program, and she is the program director, meaning she is the genius behind art therapy and the program of delivering this kind of counseling to the children and families that we serve. All art therapists have a master's degree. It's a rigorous study of the merger between art and therapy. And like I said, I have seen its effect and its impact on families and children, and it's almost invisible the way it touches people, because if you are playing with clay or coloring or doing whatever you're creating, you are relaxing and you are emoting and you are revealing something about yourself, and you don't even know you're doing it. And also you start talking. And our art therapists, I think there are about 10 of them that are part of our program now, they're miracle workers, and they wake up every day making a real difference in people's lives.
That is amazing. And so let's go back just for a moment to when you were 10 years old.
Yep.
As a 10-year-old boy or girl, you want to be outside, you want to be playing with your friends, or you want to be coloring or just having fun. Was that stuff that you were able to do?
Well, it was the Mesozoic era, right, for this. Today, people talk about lots of things that we never talked about back then. If you mentioned the word cancer in the late
C word.
60s or
you
70s,
didn't say it. Yeah.
the whole neighborhood would be smitten with the disease, right?
That's right. And nobody came to visit. Nobody no,
so
it was invisible.
People knew. My friends, my peers did not know. Their parents knew, and I missed school, and I was tired a lot. But it's a sport metaphor. We played through it, right? So I did as much as I could do. I played Little League. I, hung out with my friends. I did all that kind of stuff, but missed many days. And
so for the kids today, and you mentioned this, there has been incredible steps medically, and I'm not a doctor at all, but I just know from the people that I have talked to over the years, and that there have been incredible steps in terms of treatment and survival rates for children with cancer.
Right.
But you're really talking about getting them through the process of the treatment. And when you met Tracy, what was it that you saw that was so important to have this outlet for young people to be able to just, art, yes, art is important, and art has many levels, but just for them to do something normal.
Well, the first thing I saw was a bright and open environment, as opposed to a stodgy, gray. I was treated in an adult clinic, so I remember one other young boy there, but otherwise I was sitting next to adults. And when you walk into the Tracy's clinic, and now frankly all the clinics that we serve, it's just different. It's light, it's bright, it's cheery. It's not Eastern European, kind of construct. But just seeing the art therapists sit down on on little kid chairs at little kid tables, and working with kids and talking with them and letting their imaginations go wherever they want to go. One of the I'm not an art therapist. I'm not a professional, but I learned something about it all the time, and I've learned a lot over 20-some years. And this is something where the kid has control in a world where they have very little control. I mean, most 10, 12-year-olds don't have a lot of control, parents aside, teachers aside. But these kids have these strangers poking and prodding them and deciding when they're going to get medicines and when they're going to feel lousy and what's going to happen to them. And just the act of deciding I want to use clay or I want to use crayons is a decision point, or I want to make a Star Wars scene, or I want to make a garden scene is a decision point. And so the art therapists let them be in charge and facilitate whatever it is they're working on. And some of the art is really, really good, and some of the art is kid art. But what happens around that table is that the children start speaking, sometimes prompted, sometimes unprompted. They start speaking to each other. And another important thing that we do is we require the programs that we fund to allow siblings to participate, because the healthy sibling is just as scared and just as confused and has just as many questions and wonders if it's going to happen to him.
And wonders why mom and dad don't have any time for them.
Exactly right. But, one of the, I explain this often by anecdote, and one of the stories during one of our sibling programs, so they're sitting around and somebody's talking about what cancer is and how you get cancer. And again, the art therapist is mostly listening to this discussion. And one of the kids says, well, I know how my brother got cancer. I pushed him off the bunk bed and he got a black and blue mark, and then he got cancer. Oh. Well, that went to the doctor because the black and blue mark didn't go away. And the black and blue mark not going away revealed a leukemia diagnosis. So it is not that he caused the leukemia, it is that he expedited the diagnosis of the leukemia, which in some respects might have even been helpful. Who knows? But this kid had to carry with him that he had caused his brother to get this terrible disease. So, that's part of what we do. I don't remember the exact story, but the art therapist says, well, wait a minute, what'd you say? No, that's not how it works at all. Let's go talk to the doctor. Let's talk about this so that you understand it better.
So that through the process of extending that program to the siblings, to the family, that you really are ministering to everybody who's going through. Because you don't go, as a kid, you don't go through cancer by yourself. Everybody is impacted. I'm speaking today with Matt Gerson, and he is the founder of Tracy's Kids. And it's a unique experience that helps children battling cancer in a very unique way with art therapy. So you met Tracy. You saw what was happening.
Right.
Who is Tracy?
Tracy is the art therapist at Georgetown Hospital, program director at this stage. She's a real leader in the field. She was just down in Texas speaking to a group about art therapy. She's a highly regarded art therapist. Developed the model. The model that she developed at Georgetown is the one that we've tried to expand to the other programs where we're located, and we're now at 7 or 8, depending on how you count. But so I see this and I ask her how much it costs to run this program. And I think it was $35,000. So I said, okay, I'm going to try to raise that money for you. And we did, and the rest is history. We just did more and more. And frankly, I was successful because of a little help from my friends, right? It's we had a lot of local support from the D.C. community, from the D.C. downtown lobbying community. People forget that D.C. is also a community, right? That people live here.
Absolutely.
Not everybody is the Speaker of the House, and not everybody is a senator. Everybody's got kids they got to get to soccer, and they got laundry they got to pick up, and they got to put food on the table every day. And so it's a real town in addition to being a unique town.
That's very, very true. And so you have been able to expand these services really across the DMV. Children's Hospital. Mm-hmm. What do you have? So how does it work? Are there clinics in each place, or do you bring the therapist in, or how is the program
We provide
administered?
a grant to the hospital, and the hospital uses our grant to hire an art therapist or two, or in the case of children's, 3. Children's is a very big population that we serve. It's unlikely that there is a child living in the footprint of your radio station that we don't see if they've got cancer or a blood disorder. The way the world works, cancers and blood disorders are treated in very similar ways, so they're treated in the same clinic. So, for example, Children's has the second biggest sickle cell population in the country, and we serve those children. It's not like we say, well,
sorry, you don't have cancer, or you can't help
exactly.
you. Okay.
So if they're in the hematology oncology clinic, which all of these programs are, they're ours, and we're glad to work with whoever comes through our doors.
How much of that is hands-on for you? Do you get to go and work with the kids?
No.
That's not your gift.
Well, I remember being touched by a lot of strangers, right? And I don't need to be one more stranger in these kids' lives. I'm not a professional. This is not what I do. I visit each of the programs once, twice, 3 times a year, depending on where they're located. Invariably, I'll talk to a parent and tell them my story, and invariably the mom will reach out and grab my arm. It's really interesting. They're just grabbing on to physically connect to somebody who has beaten the disease.
And has grown up and is healthy and surviving and thriving and helping.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but I intentionally don't engage with the kids unless there's a real reason, they're past treatment and they just want to talk to me about careers or whatever it may be, but not while they're sick.
When you're talking to the parents, you mentioned that particularly the moms will want to reach out and just say, he made it. That's good.
Yeah.
That's hope. Have there been other interactions like that just stay with you after the fact? Maybe kids have come back and said that was something that was important to me at that time?
Well, the most amazing feedback that I've gotten for 22 years that everybody associated with the program has gotten is that children look forward to going to the clinic. And for me, that's inconceivable because the clinic that I went to was A, gray, and B, they put these things in your arms or radiation or surgery that make you feel lousy and different and keep you from school and keep you from soccer or whatever else you'd rather be doing. But our art therapists are so skilled, they create a very comfortable environment where kids can be kids, where kids can make decisions, and they look forward to it. And just last week, I got a letter from her mom whose daughter had a really rough year, but came through it and seems to be very healthy now. And had a transplant. It was leukemia, I'm pretty sure, and there was a transplant involved. And the mom wrote me a note that said how that the art therapy was a sanctuary for her daughter who was sick and her healthy older brother. And the word sanctuary just hit me, right? I mean, that is a word that means it's a place of peace, a place of comfort, safety.
Safe place.
But I get that all the time, that kids look forward to it. And it is inconceivable to me that kids will look forward to it.
That is amazing. Have you ever thought of taking all their art and putting it on display?
We do. We have one of the local art galleries supports an art show in around Christmas time. I'm spacing out the name, unfortunately. I'd love to give them credit because they're great to do it, because the kids are all excited. They're showing in a gallery, right? They're artists, and some of the art is kid art, and some of the art is really good.
That's fantastic. And I know you have mentioned very clearly that you're not an art therapist, but tell us about some of the options that the kids have when they come into the art clinic and some of the things that they get to do. I just noticed on your website, which is www.tracyskids.org. There's no apostrophe. I saw literally, it looked like they were going to do Ukrainian eggs or something like that, because there was a carton of eggs that had been blown out, and they just do amazing. If you're thinking of crayons and scribbling, that is not what we're talking about here. That's why I wanted to make it clear.
Some of it is very sophisticated. Some of it is learned by the kids at school. Some of it is learned by the art therapists when they confer with their colleagues, when they go to conferences. I mean, it's wherever the imagination takes you. We provide the supplies, and they provide the imagination, and it goes from there.
What a great combination. Again, circling back to when you had cancer and you were 10 years old, art therapy wasn't a thing. It wasn't even, I mean, maybe it was in its beginning stages, but it just...
Well, it's not a widely known thing now. I mean, it's a little bit arcane, and I used to think it was a little touchy-feely and arcane for me, but over time I have learned that it really works. Again, you're talking to children, right? And many of them don't have words, know words, can't express words. Many adults can't express what they're feeling, right? One of the early things that got me was this little boy that came from a not, really secure family background, was playing with puppets. And he named one of the puppets, and he was going in for a bone marrow transplant, and he named one of the puppets Dr. Bones, and Dr. Bones was explaining to the other doctor that he was going to take out the bones of this kid. And the art therapist said, well, now say that again. Despite the fact that the child had been told what a bone marrow transplant was, the child heard bone transplant and thought that his bones were going to be replaced with a different skeleton. And so they had a chance to sit down with him and bring the doctor in and sit down with the art therapist and whatever other experts were at, I think it was it was Georgetown, at the time, until he could understand what was going to happen to him. So it's, without art therapy, that would not have been expressed. And those stories are repeated over and over again.
And that's so helpful. So it really is therapy, and art is the vehicle at times, and other times it's art and therapy is the vehicle, it seems like, because of that ability to just be a kid for a little bit and not even think about.
Right. And, in that story, you could imagine the kid either being afraid to explain that he was afraid, or afraid to explain that he was confused, or just confused and was just going to go about it thinking, okay, I'm going to get a new set of bones.
Like because he doesn't have a choice, as you said anyway.
But through art, he was able to articulate it.
So you have been able to spread this program, as you mentioned, Children's Hospital, Georgetown, also in
Inova Fairfax,
the
Shark Cancer Center, Baltimore Sinai Children's Hospital. It is unlikely that a child in who is hearing our voice on over-the-air broadcast, if they are, have this illness, we're going to see them.
And then you've also been spreading, I noticed, up in New York.
Yeah.
What do you have up there?
Well, it all starts when one of our therapists from down here moves. They either move or relocate with a family, or go back home. And so we're in San Antonio because somebody moved back home, and that was 3 art therapists ago. But we have a great program running there, so supported by the local community. So we're glad to be there. We're in New York, as you mentioned. But the base of operations is definitely here in the DMV.
But that is something you could not possibly have foreseen.
No, not at all. I mean, it's no. That was not the plan. We just moved forward and we raised more and more money, and we said, okay, where are we going? Or somebody moved. We really wanted to move to Children's because it was such a big population. And, we, like I said, with a little help from our friends, we did really well. I'd be remiss if I didn't point out some of our friends are with Monumental Sports and Entertainment. One of my favorite days of the year is when the Caps come to the clinic at Georgetown right around Christmas time. And, these big, hulking, enormous, crash into each other hockey players are sitting next to these little boys and girls, and they're as patient as can be, and the kids treat them just like peers, and they are fighting over who wins tic-tac-toe or who's going to spray paint, where they're going to spray paint, and it is adorable and great. And by the way, over time, the Caps see these kids grow a year or 2 or 3, because we see kids for a year or 2 or 3 or more. So that's been really wonderful. And this year at our recent big charity fundraiser, we celebrated the District of Champions. We had a great gift from the Nationals to go on field during batting practice, and something from a ride on the Olympia ice cleaning machine during a Caps game, and some stuff from the Mystics. So we, that sports does figure into what we do as well.
That is so great. Obviously, your focus is on the fundraising and on gathering support. So tell us how that has come about. And as you mentioned, you just had your big fundraiser. What's it called, and what can people put on their calendar for next year? Well,
you'd have to go to our Facebook page is the best place we have for reaching out. Again, Tracy's Kids. And it's a movie-themed fundraiser because I love movies. And every year before the Academy Awards, I used to say, oh, man, I wish I would have seen that one. And so we show 5 or 6 different movies during Hollywood's award season that has been nominated or talked about or, is up for an award or won one of the other awards. And it's truly unique. There's nothing like this anywhere else in the world, where you can show up for our event and walk into 6 different theaters, and often, one person will go into one movie and another person will go into another. When I go with my wife, she's not going to go see 1917 under any circumstances, so I go in there.
Although I know it was wonderful, that's just not that grown up.
She wanted to see Parasite, so, somebody else wants to see Rocket Man, and somebody else, what else did we have? We had a great selection of movies this year, really a top selection of movies this year. So it's a unique fundraising event. We do it every February, but go to our Facebook page. That's where you can get the most information and see some of the work that our kids have done.
So do you have volunteers that help you, or are you really just focused on...
We're really small and lean and mean. We really, I have a day job in addition to doing this. So we don't have a corporate office. We don't have anything like that. It's just a handful of people who spend their lives helping when they can.
And then, of course, the art therapists themselves.
They are paid and salaried as a result of the grants that we give, yes. That
is fantastic. When you have this big fundraiser, and remind me the name of it one more time.
Well, we call it And the Winner Is.
And the Winner Is. And do you have it at a set place, or just depends on the year?
Yeah, we have it at the Lucky Strike in Gallery Place. And this year they offered to host our kids at a bowling afternoon one day, so that was kind of cool. And then we go right upstairs from Lucky Strike into the gallery, the Regal Gallery Place. And Regal has been a partner of ours for, we've done it now, I think, this was the 15th year that we've done this, and people support us. We've been very, very lucky.
That is amazing. Now, do you find that most of your support comes from corporate sponsorships or individuals, or how does that work?
Both, mostly corporate. Comcast is a big sponsor of ours. Boeing is a big sponsor of ours. The movie studios obviously are big sponsors of ours. A little help from my friends, like I said, the National Association of Broadcasters, the Consumer Technology Association. I'm going to leave somebody out and get in trouble, but a lot of different entities who I know from, working here in Washington say yes whenever we ask.
And you're right, because even behind the corporations, it's still people.
I bump into people all the time. Well, I'll tell you how the sibling thing really became policy. Is I bumped into a guy who I knew when he was on Capitol Hill. We weren't friends. He had a senior job on Capitol Hill, and I bumped into him one day and hadn't seen him for years. And he said, "Hi, I just wanted to say thank you." And I didn't know what he was thanking me for, but I knew. And he said, my son's been sick for a while, and you guys have been invaluable to us, but you've been more important for my daughter, who's a couple of years older. And when I heard him say that, it just made so much sense that that's when our sibling policy really kicked in, that we require siblings to be welcome in the clinics that we serve.
Now, you mentioned that you had a sibling when you were going through this.
An older sister.
Have you ever gone back and asked her what she was going through at that time?
That's a very good question. We haven't talked about it directly. But you just know if mom and dad are focused on me and not on her, right?
Kids already think that anyway.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Right? It's the favorite.
But when it's confusing and there are very logical questions, why him and not me? Am I going to get it? How did this come about? It's a natural thing, and I was aware of it, but until I had this job, I wasn't as aware of it.
When the siblings come in, are they separate?
No.
Okay.
I mean, the hospitals have rules about, during flu season, and if somebody has a sniffle, they're less welcome than during the summer when they don't have a sniffle. But, again, at some of our clinics, when the mom brings the patient, what's she going to do with another child? They may not have daycare. They may not have school. They may not have camps. They may not have a support system. So they were bringing kids anyway. So when we started focusing on keeping the siblings occupied and happy, it yielded other benefits.
That's amazing. And I know you've told me some stories of people after the fact, but have you had contact with some of the young people who have gone through the program who are now healthy? And what did they say?
I'm glad you asked. So I learned something new about this all the time. I've been doing this for 22 years, and somehow this year I realized, wow, we've been doing this for 22 years. That means some of the people we serve are moms and dads. So we started looking back, and we had a feature that we called Alumni Autumn. And, we have one girl's young woman, I guess, is a ROTC candidate for the Air Force, and somebody's working as a Hollywood producer, and one's an entrepreneur, and another is a jewelry designer, and many get into art, which is interesting. But they've all gone on to live, fulfilling lives and left this part of their lives behind them, which is very important to me because I don't want cancer to define who they were. I don't want cancer to define who I am, right? That was then, this is now, and I don't like the word survivor because I think survivor harkens too much to the fact that you even were sick. I think you are who you are. You're a jewelry designer, or you're an entrepreneur, or one's a school teacher in Malcolm in Prince George's County as a school teacher. That's who he is. He's not a kid who was sick. He's a, widely praised public school teacher.
That is awesome. Well, our time has flown. As always, I want to thank Matt Gerson. He's the founder of Tracy's Kids. It helps children battling cancer as well as their siblings in a very unique way with art therapy. And the web address is www.tracyskids.org or on Facebook at Tracy's Kids. Thank you so much for joining me today, and thank my engineer, Ken Hunter. You can check us out at ESPN630.com. I'm Barbara Britt on ESPN 630.
All righty.
That one.